But Coke's been one of the most proactive Olympic sponsors out there. It's the longest sponsor of the Olympics. At the same time, the CEO's been out there voicing his concern about not only Darfur, but also about Tibet. Sure, there's a concern out there, but the bigger point is that the risks for sponsors have undoubtedly increased. When they signed up for this 6 to 8 years ago, they didn't imagine it was going to be this risky. Now they're probably revitalising some of their plans and scaling back some of their earlier commitments in regard to the press.
Yeah, no, we shouldn't just single out Coca-Cola. We're talking about dozens of big Olympic sponsors, right?
Yeah, exactly. All up, there's around about 30 to 40 keynote sponsors out there. The interesting point about this time around for the Olympics is that sponsors are being targeted for their inaction rather than their action. Previously, at similar events, you have seen sponsors targeted because they've been an environmental vandal or there's been a bad track record on various parts of their corporate history. This time around, Dream for Darfur and even Tibet activists are saying, listen, you haven't done enough to pressure the Chinese government into action. Now, this is a different strategy.
Now, you're a communications industry insider. Have you talked to executives of all these companies, and are they sharing you their misgivings or their surprise at just how big this has turned out to be?
You know, I look after media and how corporates respond to media in challenging times. So I go in there and work with sponsors on, for example, messaging media training. For me, it's a challenging time, but for everyone out there, it's really key that they word their statements carefully. And interestingly, previous Olympics have seen corporate sponsors go out there and engage the public through mass press conferences, store openings, rolling out their sponsored athletes. You're unlikely to see that type of scale in Beijing in 2008.
And would any of these corporate sponsors actually consider agreeing to activist demands and say, sure, we'll do what you want us to do. We will pressure China on Darfur and human rights issues?
Well, already Coca-Cola's been one of the most forthright in actually doing that by saying they've voiced their concern in a statement. The CEO's come out and done similar actions.
It doesn't seem like it's enough, though. They're still planning this protest over the weekend.
Well, again, I'm not an apologist for the sponsors, but I would say that Coca-Cola, for one, has invested heavily in, for example, water programs in Darfur. Now remember, it's a flash term, but corporate social responsibility is a way for a company to go out there and say, we have been investing in communities which have been disaffected. It may not necessarily be Darfur, but these actions have shown that they are participant in change and ready to step up and be party to changing in these types of communities.
Now, companies like Samsung, Lenovo, Staples, which is a big office retailer in the U.S., Coca-Cola, they have spent big bucks to be associated to the Beijing Olympic Games. Looking at what's happening now, do you think it was a wise investment, honestly?
If you have a look at the two key things associated with this, China, it's a gateway to 1.3 billion consumers out there. The Olympic brand, arguably as strong as any of the sponsors' brands. These are two big things. Now, history will show, for example, my father-in-law, he was a runner in 1968 and 1972 at the Olympics. Both those Olympics of Mexico and Munich had violent actions mar the Olympics. The Olympics recovered, and I think sponsors are taking a long-term view at this and saying, we're in it for the long term, and we do see potential out there, but the point remains, maybe that the sponsors cannot maximise their full potential of marketing and media what they initially thought.